The last song is called Talk is Cheap. Detox is very much an internal conversation, man to man, black man to black man. But an incredibly important part of men's healing is learning to listen to and value the voices of women, which is why I chose to end the album with a song featuring two of my homegirls, Lucee and Micah Estelle. They both killed their verses. But the song as a whole is a call to action. Okay, we spent a good amount of time listening, learning, healing, challenging, and now it's time to walk it out, right? As an artist who often writes about racial justice, I find myself often performing at nonprofit events, and I've built a lot of relationships with activists and organizers in the community. And several black women in those spaces locally, both here in Long Beach and LA, they have expressed horrible things that have happened, and the deep sense of betrayal they feel by the black men in their communities and in their organizations. The hypocrisy of black men who are so loud about racial justice, and also, in their words, loud about sexism and patriarchy, but it proves to be nothing more than empty words because they turn around and treat their women comrades and co-conspirators in revolution, they treat them terribly. And some become abusers of these women in these spaces, and all the while they're marching for racial justice. I've heard so many stories. And this is why in the beginning of my verse, I say, talk is cheap. I want to see the difference in us honestly. Fighting white supremacy while chasing money, power, cheeks. Are y'all really about this revolution and equality? Or just wish that you can split the pie and get the biggest piece? So the reality is a lot of black men have accepted the white supremacist definition of a real man. A lot of us are frustrated not because that definition is evil, but because we are locked out of becoming those type of men. Kanye West accurately captures this flawed thinking in his song, New Slaves. Now, I want to say I don't believe that Kanye is agreeing with this thinking in the context of the song called New Slaves. It's like a commentary. But he's rather expressing the sentiment of the new slave when he says, you see his leaders and his followers, but I'd rather be a dick than a swallower. And a lot of black men, frustrated for centuries because of the oppression we have faced, we aspire to simply become the dicks instead of the swallowers. Many of us are fighting the oppression only to become the oppressor. But this is a false dichotomy. You don't have to be either the dick or the swallower. Because if you did have to choose, I understand it. Yeah, I'd rather be a dick. You know, if those are my two choices, I would rather be a dick than a swallower. And I think that's where we get at, right? But those are not your only two choices. And as a black man, if you do not intentionally do the work of confronting the sexism and the misogyny and the patriarchy in you, even if you effectively strip white supremacy of much of its power, you will simply be placing the whip in your own hands and continuing to oppress black women. And quite frankly, I find that even more tragic than white folks oppressing us. But the end of my verse is still very hopeful because I'm hopeful. I do not believe that anyone is beyond redemption, as I said before. I do not believe that any man is trash to be disposed of. Even if you have harmed and oppressed, you can change, and you can become a healer, you can become a new man, and you can become part of the solution. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, the book of Genesis tells the story of the first human family. Adam and Eve had multiple children, but their oldest two sons were Cain and Abel. And as the story goes, in a fit of jealousy, Cain murders his brother Abel. It did not take long for toxic masculinity to mess things up on planet Earth. But something interesting happened after that, as the story goes. Cain became paranoid that someone would seek revenge on him for the evil that he did. And he cries out to God, someone's going to kill me for what I did. And the Bible says that God marked Cain. This was not a scarlet letter. It wasn't a shaming thing. But it says God marked Cain as a mark of protection, saying that no one was able to harm Cain. No one was allowed to get revenge on Cain for killing Abel. According to the Judeo-Christian tradition, God looked at humanity's first murderer and said, we're going to end this cycle of violence right here. I want you to live. No one is beyond redemption. And this is why my final words on Detox reference this story. I say, the Lord is able to make an Abel out of a Cain. I still be messing up, but not defined by my mistakes. A righteous man get up every time he falls on his face. Steady learning. I'm determined. And love It's never too late. And that's all.